Welcome to 500 Doors, your real estate podcast. Alrighty, welcome back. Kim Hayden here with 500 Doors. I have a fellow Canadian on the show today. We're both sitting in the snowdrift. For those of you down in Miami enjoying the weather today, I want you to know when I look out my window, I'm seeing 4 inches of snow. So we're going to bond over that. But I'm pretty excited to get a bit of a scope on Halifax and the Halifax region, which is where Rob is from. I actually have been to Halifax for a Royal LePage conference in, I think it was like 2002, 2003.
Before my
And
time.
yeah, and it was awesome. They had this pub crawl tour. So we went to all the pubs. And then the next day we did a cemetery tour. I didn't realize that so many of the Titanic
Cemetery.
the Titanic cemetery. I had no idea, and you could actually track everything. But it's a gorgeous, gorgeous city, and it got a bit of a heated kind of bit of a glow up during the pandemic. Everybody was looking for opportunities. So I am, I'm looking forward to this conversation because we're going to go from a historical, traditional community and understand where it's at today. So, Rob, before we get started, tell us a little bit of who is Rob Scanlan.
Rob Scanlan's born and raised in Nova Scotia. I'm a small town boy that lived there until I was about 30 years old and then moved to Halifax. And through a series of events, became a realtor about 16 years ago. So
where's Peter in all this? Come on, Rob. You can do more than this. Are you the oldest of 12 children? Are you do you have 6 toes?
I'm a single child that was raised by my grandmother, so I was spoiled to death as a child. Never had a pet growing up at all, and I never really had my own pet until I was 32 years old when I got my first dog, Tinker, who lived 16 happy years. And now I've got Peter, both Jack Russell Terriers, so they're very active, busy, personable little dogs that everybody who meets loves, and they both love me beyond anything that I've ever been loved by in my entire life. And Peter today is in daycare. I should have brought him, but he loves daycare. I drop him off at 6:30 in the morning, and I pick him up at 6 o'clock in the evening, and he comes out the exact same way that he goes in. And awesome. They all love him.
And Peter's on your YouTube channel.
Yeah,
that's how I found out about Peter. He had a little gray sweater, and he was just totally a camera hog. Totally a camera hog.
He's the star of the show. I have clients now, specifically listing appointments, buyer appointments. Will you bring the dog? Are you bringing the dog?
It's kind of like, those who don't have animals, we want to love on everybody else's animals.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for people to love on my children, especially the 35-year-old. Here, we'll take a kid. I got 3, right?
Well, ironically enough, when Tinker, my first dog, passed away, I had a lot of people, of course, reach out after I made the announcement that he had died. And a lot of my past clients said, we picked you specifically because of the picture with you and your dog. So,
yeah, it shows a human side, humane side.
Yeah,
absolutely. So let's talk Halifax.
Yep.
So Halifax, an area, lay out where you work, because it's Canada's kind of, it's different than in the US, because the US, they'll say, I work in this market, but it's literally only 10 minutes from the next market.
Yep.
So whereas in Canada, sometimes we can watch our dogs run away for a day to get to the next market.
Exactly.
It depends on how far north you are. So talk to us a little bit about Halifax. What makes Halifax great? Why do you like to represent it?
I just love the people. I love that we're by the ocean. I love that there's lakes everywhere. I love how easy it is to get to everything. So basically, I live in Dartmouth. Dartmouth is right across the harbor from Halifax. So, you'll have some people say we're the New Jersey to New York of Halifax type of thing. I will travel easily about an hour away in any circumference. And I have gone further. I've gone an hour and a half, 2 hours if somebody wants to show or look at a house. And I've had past clients that have specifically said, I have a house in New Glasgow, for instance, which is an hour and 45 minutes away. Will you list it for us? And I've never said no. I will typically bring on a local agent and co-list the property if that's the case, because it's not always easy to service an area that's 2 hours to an hour and 45 minutes away. And it is a slightly different market as you get an hour outside of the city core. So basically, I'll go as far as I was in West Ship Harbor, which is on the eastern shore, over the weekend, and that was 55 minutes. My clients felt horrible for making me drive that far, but honestly, you're driving along a windy road along the ocean, and I took Peter.
Yeah, took Peter. And do you listen to any? I know that I listen to a lot of like either podcasts or books. I love the road trips for books.
Yeah, I listen to books is the big thing. I do listen, and I've honestly been listening to a few of your podcasts leading up to this, so I knew exactly what I was getting into. But I listen to, you can just about find anything on YouTube and transfer it through the car. So, Richard Robbins, I'll listen to him. Tom Story, I'll listen to him. It's just.
Absolutely. And there's so much good content out there.
Exactly.
And I love the fact that we can choose to fill our head with positivity, right?
Yep.
Now, let's go over the last decade of Halifax.
Yep.
Right? When we look at Nova Scotia, and it's funny because you don't have an accent. I was expecting more of a Newfie accent. And folks, if you're watching this and are listening to this and you don't know a Newfie accent, go look it up. I mean, it's like going to Kentucky. It's like Canada's Kentucky.
I dated a Newfoundlander for a short period of time, and in the beginning, I honestly almost could not understand what they were saying. And towards the end of it, I was starting to talk like them.
That's why you broke up.
Yeah.
I'm just joking.
One of the many reasons.
We love the Newfies. They bring some texture to Canada.
They are the nicest people, generally.
Absolutely. Just don't drink the screech. If anybody offers you screech, walk away.
Yeah.
So let's go into, I'd like to look at the last 10 years, because yes, we did have this oddity through the pandemic where a lot of major markets did blow up, and now we're seeing those prices settle down. However, over the last 20 years, there's been a lot of pull from the East Coast to either Toronto, BC, Ontario, BC, or Calgary. Everybody always jokes that, there's no actual Calgarians. Everybody's from somewhere else in Canada. But I'm hearing there's a reverse of all of this.
Yeah.
So walk me through what the market looks like. What is the job opportunities? What's going on that's starting to drive that reverse migration back to Halifax?
Yep. So basically, for instance, 10 years ago, I started selling real estate about 16 years ago. So when we go back 10 years, the Halifax population was decreasing. People would go to university here because we're a big university town. They'd get their degree. They would, of course, then have to go to somewhere like Toronto or onwards to get a job or find opportunity that they didn't have here. We were an aging population. So at one point in time, it was talked that there were going to be more empty houses than there were people to buy them, which, of course, was happening to a degree, but then we could have a listing that would sit on the market. You'd sign a 6-month listing term. It would be nothing for that term to come 6 months up, and you would either, re-sign with the client or they would choose to go with somebody else. But markets would, houses would sit on the market for 6 months to a year, sometime in very desirable areas with a very desirable price. And it's just, nobody was here to purchase them. We're also a big military city, so Canada's East Coast Navy is here. So that was probably one of the biggest switch arounds with people moving. Posting time would come, and it would be nothing for me to have 5 to 6 families here on a home buying trip, for 4 to 7 days, and it would just be a whirlwind showing them houses, booking inspections, getting everything done for them. And that would be typically spring would be the busiest time of year. And then winter time, you'd kind of have a lot of activity with getting ready for the spring market again. So there wasn't a whole lot going on in other periods of time.
Have you found that Halifax is now leveling out, is starting to become more consistent because it's now hitting people's radar as a place to live?
Very much more. And I mean, I think also a lot of people back then, Eastern Canada, nobody knew we were here. And I find, if you ever
Oh,
said
the good old days, the good old days.
very much. If you ever said Nova Scotia, people would say, well, is that close to Toronto? And you'd say, no, Toronto's here, we're over here. I find it's still the case. I went to New York a couple of weeks ago, and anytime I'd say to somebody I was from Nova Scotia, and they'd be like, oh, I've been to Toronto. And I'd be like, yes, everybody's been to Toronto. But now I find, especially with the pandemic, for a little period of time, we had a little bubble where we lived our lives completely like everybody else. We were allowed to go to the beach, we were allowed to go shopping, we had very few cases a day. People were moving here for lifestyle, buying houses sight unseen. We were FaceTiming them through houses. We were getting 20 to 30 offers on houses. People were moving here that had never been here before. And I think basically a lot of that was the news. We were in a bubble, so nobody from any other province could come in unless they self-isolated after they got here. And people were seeing this and just selling their homes in Toronto or wherever they were and buying up property here. And at that time, our average price point 5 years ago was 240, 230. And now we're close to 600 as an average price point. So we've more than doubled in that 5-year period. And for somebody coming from Toronto who was selling their $1.8 million condo to come here and, look at a $300,000 house that had 20 offers on it and say, oh, well, we'll go 150 over because that's what was happening.
Yeah.
We'll go 150 over. We don't want to do any inspections. Closing day, the house could be on fire. We'll close. It's all good. Fire department's on the way.
Yeah.
So,
do you think that with having the shift in the way we work has opened up job opportunities and leveled the playing field?
That was also the other largest part of it, the work from home. So as long as, and everybody said, as long as I have Wi-Fi, I can live anywhere. So that's.
And I think that we were talking before we started recording in regards to Calgary had a real issue with its downtown vacancy. Whereas I'm going to guess that Halifax probably didn't have the same issues because it never had a high concentration of downtown of commerce.
Exactly.
So you don't have that hurdle to overcome.
Yeah. And we didn't have as much commerce, so we had enough commerce buildings to accommodate what was there. The problem our downtown had and started to develop was that retail stores were closing because outlet stores and things were opening. Bayers Lake, Dartmouth Crossing, Walmart, Home Depot, all of those little stores were there. So nobody was going downtown to fight for parking, to go to the malls or whatnot that were downtown. So what they've done now is realize that people need to live downtown so that they can service restaurants and, because restaurants had the same problem. 5 years ago, somebody said, hey, we're going to go downtown to the Keg. I'd be like, oh, really? Can't we?
The downtowns have to become experiential and livable in order for them to survive. And the challenge is if the downtowns die, it's like the heart of a community, right? If it dies out, it starts fractioning off and it's harder to attract larger
Yeah.
attract things like, the large traveling operas in the park.
Yeah.
Well, they can't come if it's 5 small boroughs, but they will
Yeah.
come if it's one large attraction.
Yeah.
So I absolutely agree. Is I love watching what I'm seeing right now, and we can see it in all the markets across North America and actually globally. Because I
Yeah.
mean, even Helsinki is running into vacancy issues with they're having to do swath rezonings from
Yeah.
an RC commercial zoning to a multi-use,
Yeah.
right? So let's talk about. I'd like to know, what are some fun things we can do in Halifax? Why would I move to Halifax? Let's say my job is not an issue.
Yeah.
Okay, let's gear this to what we need. We need people with toddlers
Yep.
to move.
Yep.
Why would a young family move to Halifax?
Um, the biggest thing that I tell people coming from away is that no matter where you are, you're 30 minutes from a beautiful beach. So you're 30 minutes from Crystal Crescents, you're 30 minutes from Rainbow Haven, you're 30 minutes from Martinique. There's lakes everywhere. There's still a lot of greenery everywhere. They've done an amazing job rebuilding the Halifax waterfront. So 5, 6 years ago, you'd go on the waterfront, and it was a waterfront. You walked along, a couple little restaurants, not a whole lot else to do. Now there's festivals on the waterfront. There's huge new buildings. There's huge new promenades. There's parks. There's outdoor beer gardens. We've got great schools.
Well, and you guys have one of the leading universities also.
We have a couple. So we've got Dalhousie, which is the biggest school in Halifax. They own huge chunks of downtown. So lawyers, doctors. St. Mary's is another big school. King's College. We've got vocational schools. So we've got a lot of tech. So they've really come around with also keeping people here in those types of.
Yes.
So the tech industry has really rebounded. There's a lot of like medical type labs and things that are doing very well here. Startups are great here. We've just probably doubled in restaurants, and we're getting a third Costco.
Now you made the math, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Costco. Gotta love Costco.
Yeah.
There's just certain things they do better. Like those buns, the squishy dinner
Oh yeah.
buns
The
are
50
like,
hot dogs.
yeah, yeah. So, when I say the word community,
Yeah.
what does that word mean to you?
Um, I find people here are not only very welcoming to everybody, but I've had buyers, for instance, move into a new neighborhood and messaged me and said, "Oh my gosh, the neighbors across the street came over and brought us cookies, or they brought us a pie, or, and there's little street parties." And that's one of the things that I've actually, when we talk about community, I moved into an area of Dartmouth 10 years ago. I was always a downtown Halifax person, but downtown started getting congested, and I would have to plan my whole day around getting in and out of downtown in rush hour traffic. So I bought a little house in Dartmouth, met all of my neighbors out walking the dog and whatnot. So now every spring, and I live on kind of a quiet street. So there's my two houses, my neighbor's house and mine, and then there's nobody across the street and a little bit of cut through traffic. So we do a little summer party, usually May, June. Everybody brings their dog, and I have a little barbecue, and all the neighbors kind of hang out. And that started small. I basically started doing it at Christmas time. And I'd have a fire in my backyard, and I would invite, 5 or 6 of the neighbors, and then it turned into 8 to 10 of the neighbors. Then my backyard didn't accommodate everybody, and then my neighbors were actually like, "We should do something in the middle of the street." And I was like, "Yeah, that's actually a great idea." So we get out the Roller Page tents, and I buy 300 hot dogs from Costco. And everybody brings their dog, and it's like 2 hours of just kind of socializing. Sometimes it turns into three, and the kids play, and the dogs run around, and it's great. So we're still small.
Yeah.
They're trying to make us into something really big, which we're growing too fast into now. But we're still a very small 500,000 people spread out over a large area. So
Yeah.
you've got areas that are communities like Hammonds Plains and Fall River and Dartmouth and Halifax and Timberley and Beachville and everything like that as well. So
One thing that is fascinating about you say small. Um, when I first moved to Calgary, we were 700,000 people,
yeah,
and now that was 99. So a quarter century later, 25 years later, we're rocking about 1.7. So we about added a million people.
yeah,
What is fascinating though is that the people who curate community
yeah,
is still a small community.
yeah,
And when I see people, it's always that same group that are hosting events, supporting, or sponsoring the little league teams
yeah,
or, doing the charity runs. And,
yeah.
and it's fascinating. No matter how big our communities grow, I think there's still opportunity to curate a community that gives.
Absolutely. Yeah. The dynamic in my neighborhood over the last 10 years has changed. That's the other, like when I moved to Dartmouth, I'm kind of on the cusp of what people would call the hood. So my street, I always said was on the equator. So everybody, on this side of me was, you know, kept their yards, did everything nicely. And then on the other side, you just didn't walk down there at nighttime when I first
Yep.
when I
Yep.
first moved to my neighborhood. And now it's so different. Like it's
Yeah.
just, and it's a lot of it's been immigration. So that's been our biggest population growth. We've had a lot of Indian families move here specifically. And a lot of them, in that place you didn't walk to at night was cheaper for sure to buy anything, which is why I also bought my house where I did at the time. Um, and everything's just changed. So now when you walk down the street, there are families playing outside, they're planting gardens in the summertime.
Yep.
You know, it's a community again.
And
So,
that's the beauty of being a real estate agent is we get the opportunity
yeah,
to step into that leadership space. We
yeah,
get to witness
yeah,
the changes and hopefully the
yeah,
changes for good.
yeah,
I do want to mention before we because I want to dig into a hidden gem, places that you love to tell people about that they
yeah,
have to go and visit. Maybe a historical, maybe a client of yours has opened something up. But before we dive into that, I do want to um, let people know that you have been listed in the top 3 realtors for the last 15 years in the Coast Best of Halifax poll.
yeah,
And that's pretty awesome because that shows to me is consistency. Um, in real estate, because we have peaks and valleys in the
mhm,
market, it's
yeah,
really easy to fall into inconsistency.
yeah,
It's really easy to race, 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 race while we've got stuff going on, and then we just go to bed and pull the blanket over our head when nothing's happening.
yeah,
And really, when nothing's happening is the time to nurture,
yeah,
right? To
yeah,
to do those block parties,
yeah,
to go around the neighborhood and just drop a card, say, "Hey, just thinking of you. Here's some forget me not
yeah,
flower seeds,"
yeah,
right? Not asking anything in return, but just
yeah,
nurturing.
yeah,
Um, what are give me a hidden gem. 1, 2, 3. I know it's hard to narrow down because we get out. We're always out and about.
yeah.
But what's a couple hidden gems you like to share?
For me, and I mean, I do a lot with my dog. My dog is with me every chance I have. So Shuby Park in Dartmouth is a great little, it's a smaller version of Central Park in New York to me. It's walking trails, there's a lake, there's off dog leash areas. I'm in there twice a day and I see the same people usually all of the time. So we strike up conversations and the dogs run around and do their things. A lot of the people that I meet, of course, I add to my SOI, and then they end up coming. I've got a Santa Claus event here in my office actually on Sunday coming up, and dogs are invited. So we have a really great Santa Claus. We have treats and hot chocolate, and last year we had probably 30 dogs show up, and a great number of adults and children, and I'm expecting that many more again this year. Where else? 2F by C Cafe is probably one of my favorite little cafes to go to in Dartmouth. The staff's amazing. The chocolate croissants are a pound of butter each. If you eat a croissant, you're probably not eating again for the rest of the day. But
Amazing.
it's just a great little spot downtown Dartmouth. Summertime, they open up the windows, so you're virtually on the sidewalk. And same thing, like I'll go there and work once or twice a week, sometimes for an hour or two, just to get out of the office or into a different atmosphere. If I sit outside, Peter can just lay on the sidewalk and people walk by and we chat, and everybody wants to talk to the dog. So
Absolutely. Dogs and kids are such great icebreakers. That is for sure. That is for sure. Give us, I wanted, what separates you? Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
What separates you from, you think, the average agents that come in and go out?
I think you really have to dedicate yourself to making sure that you not only stay in touch, but that your people generally feel like you're looking out for their best interest. I have taken people to houses. I've had people buy the first house they've looked at, and I've said, let's look at a few more, blah, blah, blah. But they're like, no, we love this house. And I've taken people to 50 houses. And sometime on the 50th houses, they're like, what do you think? And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So things like that. And then, once a closing happens, a week after, I reach out and say, hey, just checking in to see if you're all settled. I reach out a month again after that. They get anniversary cards, they get birthday cards, and I like your drop-in idea. I keep things in my car specifically. So if I'm driving past Bob and Betty's house on another showing or something, I'll be like, oh, shoot, I'm going to stop, whether they're home or not. And sometimes it's just a dollar store item or a pack of seeds, but I'll put it on their doorknob. They'll call me 2 hours later and they're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
We just got home and found your such and such. Pumpkins. I always do pumpkins at Halloween.
That was a Royal LePage thing. And I still actually do the pumpkin giveaway. Even like I've shared this with so many people across the United States, and they're going, this is brilliant. The pumpkin giveaway is the one thing that I learned because I started my career. I did the first 14 years of my career at Royal LePage, and I had an amazing instructor. So we had great training, Mark Partridge, and I have to give a shout out to her. She taught me so much about the reality of real estate and really that whole nurture, and then coaching with Brian Buffini. Honestly, I don't think there's anybody better than Brian Buffini. That's just a personal opinion, but I love his pop by ideas. I love the windshield wiper fluid. Going and buying a whole bunch of windshield wiper fluid, keeping it in the trunk of your vehicle this time of year. So when you stop somewhere, driving past somebody, said, helping you keep a clear view on the real estate market.
Yeah. I do that with salt too sometimes. I'll keep 5 or 6 bags of salt in my back seat. So if we get a big ice storm and I'm out driving around, I'll go and throw a bag of salt on somebody's doorstep. And honestly, it's like you gave them diamonds sometimes.
Absolutely. One of the best clients, one of my favorite clients, Dawn, we helped her. She went through she while she was pregnant, unfortunately, her husband chose that was the good time to leave. And they had just built a really big house in a new development. Now,
Yep.
we all know that big houses in new developments are not always the easiest to sell. And then let's just compound it with the fact that the poor gal was like 7 months pregnant, and it was the middle of winter.
Yep.
And my husband and my boys would go over and shovel her drive and her walk so we
Yep.
could show the home,
Yep.
and we can, make sure people were safe. And
Yep.
to this day, she will tell people about that. And she was such
Yep.
an amazing client, referring
Yep.
people to us, multiple homes. And just so everybody knows, the story ends happily. She has a wonderful husband now and beautiful family, and everything's great.
Yeah.
It was a blip in time and everybody experiences it.
Yeah.
And the challenge is around housing. So they say that the number one crisis for individuals is around finances,
Yep.
and our housing is part of that.
Yep.
And if we as real estate agents can help alleviate some of the panic or some of
Yep.
the fear, because unfortunately 50% of real estate is going to have some sort of negative motivation or negative storyline behind it, right? I had a client that passed away in a home from cancer, right? So we had to go in and remediate the property. We had to deal with the family that was out east. These things happen. We knew
Yep.
it was coming. It just happened while we had the listing, and then we
Yep.
had to go through everything. And that family that was in Winnipeg will tell you that they felt that everything was taken care of in Calgary
Yep.
because the care and attention my husband gave that family.
Yep. There's a lot of work outside of actually selling a
Mhm.
house that sets you apart. I do a lot of work pro bono, like.
Yep. Yep.
And I've had clients say, "Oh my God, I've never had a realtor do that for me before," whether it's helping them like move or, I've got a truck.
Yep.
So basically I'll be like, "Well, let's just throw everything on the back of the truck and I'll take it to the dump for you." And they're like, it's just little things like that. Like I have a cleaner, I've got a pre-close, or I've got a closing. My lady was trying to clean. I'm like, I've got a cleaner, I'm going to send her in. And it's
Yep.
just little things that set you apart.
It's those things that look at not the transaction, but the human within the transaction that makes the difference.
Yeah. And you always thank a referral. Like
Absolutely. Absolutely. What is 3 things you think a successful real estate agent should do before noon, Monday through Friday?
Before noon, Monday through Friday. I wake up every morning, take the dog for a walk. I come home, I clear my head, I read for 20 minutes, I have a tea. And then the first thing I do is basically go into my email and take care of everything that needs to be taken care of right away. I time block. So that's my time, walk the dog, have my tea, get my emails sorted. And then basically I'll reach out. Mornings are my reach out time. Afternoons are my appointments times. So I'll reach out to past clients. I'll check in on deals. I'll reach out to lawyers. I'll do everything like that. Afternoons, I set my coffee dates and show houses and do my CMAs and whatnot whenever I can. But I think basically take some time for yourself first thing in the morning, and then tackle your day is the biggest thing to do it. And I write myself a list and I time block everything out, and then nothing gets forgotten. I mean, things still get forgotten because things happen. But
Oh yeah. Things always happen. A day never ends the way that you set it up in the beginning.
no,
If you're a good real estate agent, and if you're really, really focused on your community and your clients,
Yep.
I guarantee you the day will never look in hindsight what you think it will be in foresight.
That's right.
I love that. So those 3 tips, folks, let's do it. Self-care, first thing in the morning, self-care. How are you setting yourself up for success?
Yep.
Second thing is set your day. Go in, clear out anything that's going to weigh you down. Get the emails cleared out, get everything addressed. And then the third thing before noon, reach out. How many people do you typically reach out to on an average day?
Oh, I write 5 handwritten cards a day.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
basically my admin has my SOI printed out, and then I'll just go through, and it's just nothing. It's just like, hey, Mike and Megan, just sitting here having my coffee this morning, thought about you, hope everything's great in the house. And it's just, pop it in the mail. And that's another thing where they're like, oh my God, you sent us a card. It's so nice.
Folks, check out that snail mail because has the highest return of engagement, and it's the most underutilized marketing tool that we have.
Because nobody gets mail anymore.
Nobody gets mail, or not the good kind.
Yeah.
Canada Revenue and the IRS still send mail.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, Rob, you said Mike and Megan earlier, and that stuck in my head. I'm going to throw up your social medias here.
Yeah.
Tell us, I love your YouTube. You're starting to get a bit more active on your YouTube, and you're currently working on a new website. What can people expect from you if they go to the new website and they visit you on your YouTube?
YouTube right now. So I just started a team because, of course, I was growing and I was getting a little bogged down. So I now have a full-time admin, which I've had for a while, and I now have 2 buyer's agents that work with me. So Andre is very much into making YouTube videos, and I am going to start jumping in on them with him here eventually. But he is jumped into that like wildfire, so he's loving it. I do a newsletter where I post a little video once a month, just saying hi to my people and, giving a little market update maybe, or telling them what's going to be going on in and around the office or with events. And then we are working on a brand new website. So I had a website before that just was not doing anything, and it was kind of blah and bland and wasn't.
And that's a challenge, I think, for most real estate agents is that, our companies, they get these they perform, right?
Yep.
And then we were talking before the show is your website will have the IDX embedded. And if anybody's question, what is the IDX? And it's amazing how many people don't understand the technology, because real estate's huge in technology. Your IDX is actually what plugs into the MLS, and you can search for homes through. If you're
the biggest thing is, the biggest thing, when people hear about your name, they're going to, like you did, go on and Google Rob Scanlan, and all of your social medias are going to come up. So you need to be engaging. You need to show that you're actually selling things so that they trust that you know what you're doing. And then a website's just very important because it just makes you look more professional in the whole.
Well, and your URL. This is like, folks, if you're a new agent out there, let's say you're under 5 years, and actually there's agents who are 20 years in and they don't have their own custom URL. Really, really important, folks. Go and do that. What's going to be your new URL that you're going to be using for?
Well, and it's funny you mentioned Rob Sells Halifax earlier. It's basically Rob Sells Halifax.
Rob Sells.
It's Scanlan Team Sells Halifax, actually.
Scanlan Team Sells Halifax. That's going to be the new website. And by the time this airs, I'm pretty sure that website will be ready to go, because that's still a month down the road. Yeah. And I know how great agents like yourself, Rob, we get stuff done. Stuff done. So if you're looking at East Coast of Canada, if you're looking at Halifax, Dartmouth, any of these spaces and places, or if you just want to see Rob's cool dog, Peter, visit him on YouTube, and then go to Scanlan Sells Halifax. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is it Rob Scanlan or Scanlan?
Just Scanlan.
Scanlan. And is it Scanlan Team or just Scanlan?
Scanlan Team Sells Halifax, I believe.
Scanlan Team Sells Halifax. Something in that way, guys. So, and we'll make sure that we have all that information in the show notes. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you
so much. Keep doing the good work.
I'll try. Thank you very much.
All righty. Until the next time, folks, you know what? Start your mornings off. give yourself some time, some grace, some space, because you're doing a job that will literally leave legacy for others. We become the part of our client and our community's story. So until then, till next time. Thank you for joining us at the 500 Doors, Your Real Estate Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share.